Hi, my name is Ella, and this is a video blog too. The first question is explain the way Mexican American identity, gender, and even language influence the outcome of the legal case People versus Zamora. In the case of People versus Zamora, they basically it was kids that were at the wrong place in the wrong time, basically. There was a murder, and they basically, when they one boy murdered another boy, and there was girls there and boys there, and they arrested the boys because they were Mexican American. They were pachucos, and they basically, while they were in court, the prosecutor was stating that they were guilty. Look at them, look who they are, look at the way they're dressed. Their clothing, their hairstyle, they're pachucos, so they have to be guilty. A white person would never do that. They're Mexican, so of course they're guilty. So they were found guilty. The girls that never said who was involved or what happened, so the girls that were also arrested were sent to reform school, and the boys were sent to prison, San Quentin prison. The Sleepy Lagoon defense, created by the community, the Mexican American community, eventually they were able to get the case overturned, and the boys were released after years in prison. Of course, they were never the same after all that. Their lives kind of went off track, and they didn't get to do what they were set out to do. They actually were not guilty of the murder. It said that towards the end that I think one of the girl's brothers is the one that committed the murder. And these guys just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they just assumed it was them. The second question is, how did the lawyers for the Hernandez versus Texas case use the 14th Amendment of the Constitution to win the case? And the Hernandez versus Texas, the main thing with that one was he was not there was no jury of Mexican Americans in that jury. So the jury that convicted him was all white. And so the 14th Amendment says you should have the jury by your peers. Well, their argument was his peers were not there. He was convicted by white men, and there were no Mexican Americans on the jury, so therefore it was unconstitutional. This case was fought all the way to the Supreme Court. Gus Garcia is the one that went all the way to the Supreme Court. He was the first Mexican American to ever talk in front of the Supreme Court, ever plead a case in front of the Supreme Court. So it was, they agreed with him, and it was overturned, and he had to be retried. They did retry the case, and he was found guilty again. But this time, the difference is he was found guilty by a jury of his peers. There were whites on the jury, and there were Mexican Americans on the jury. So this time it was fair. The third one is discuss a legal crisis that began in East LA in 1968. What happened and why? And did you know about this before class? No, I did not know about this before class. I found it interesting that the students created a protest, and basically they were looking for a better school, smaller classes, better books, better education. They weren't getting the same education or the same opportunities to get a better education as the other students in the white school, the other school. Their school was dilapidated. It was older, smaller. So all the schools that had the Mexican Americans in them all created this protest. It was a mass protest, and they all walked out looking for better education, better conditions to go to school and learn. The school board did eventually meet with them, and did eventually meet their needs, and were willing to hear their demands. So this was something that was big. That it was one of the first times that something this big had been done, and especially by Mexican Americans. I mean, they just wanted equal opportunity, just like the other students. And that's it. Thanks.